Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Mondays with Micah. I am here with Sandra Shaffer. Thank you for coming on the show. She is a newer widow, and we're going to get into a little bit of her story, but she was at our Walk of Love gathering this year. And so, as you're seeing a little bit of a pattern since that dinner, I've been able to get widows on the show since the dinner and ask them about the dinner, and then we'll get into a little bit of their personal story because these are widows that I have not interviewed before. So, what can you share with those about the dinner itself? Did you have an expectation of the dinner before you got there? How did it feel walking in? What were some of your takeaways? Can you share with the listener?
Well, walking in was very good because Judy was there and her family was there, so I was at ease with that.
Awesome.
Was not so at ease with who I was going to sit with or who I was going to be with, but when I got in, everything was fine. People were very cordial, nice, came up and introduced themselves. So it was a good experience for me because I'd never been to anything like that before.
Right. And how did you feel that the flow of everything from introduction to getting your food and all of that went?
Everything was fine. Awesome. Yes, it was.
And what about the speaker, the gifts? How about any of those things?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I watched the speaker on TV at, I think it's 8:00 on
ma'am.
Sundays. I watch her, and then I watch Joel Epstein, and then I go to church.
Okay, well then she's getting hit 3 times every Sunday. So had you heard of Joy before that?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, Danette. That's not Joy. Danette Crawford, Joy Ministries. So you heard her that night, and you've been following her show a little bit after.
No, I've been following her before that.
Okay.
I usually look at the news on Channel 3, and then it goes right into that.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so did you feel differently leaving than you did walking in?
Yes.
Can you share that at all?
Well, I felt like that I had made some friends.
Okay.
And that I had learned a lot.
Awesome.
And that it wasn't a feeling that you had to be alone, that I really did not realize how many widows and widowers there are in Franklin or in surrounding areas.
Right. That seems to be the biggest sentiment because there really is no gatherings for widows and widowers of that size. And that was a little bit of a hunch that I felt there were. And we had our meeting recently at the Hunterdale Fire Department, and something I challenged the ones who came with is that we really would like to grow the event, because if each one reaches one, we'll be pretty much at 200. And I truly believe there is more than that around here. And I really want all of them to, at least for one day a year, one evening, it's not enough, to be able to sit and be served.
But the thing is also that I have learned that if you suggest that they come to a meeting or something like that, you go and find out what it's like first before I decide I'm going to go.
Absolutely. So thankfully, now Sandra has been and can speak from experience, not just word of mouth. And that's really what I am asking for from them. And very true. Okay, well, Sandra has been here for a little bit this morning, and we got to know each other better. And we've had a great conversation. So we're going to bring some of that into today's episode. And first off, how old are you now?
78.
78 years old. 78 years young, as we like to say. And she wonderfully wore her red and white. So that makes me happy that she was thinking about the widow walk, and she knows I like red. And so she wore that. And so I said, well, I'm going to wear red too, so we can match. And so that is always fun when I see y'all are picking up some of my vibes, if you want to say, picking up. And all of that to say, Sandra has been through 3 different losses in her life. And we're going to get into a little bit of that. But she let me know that she had only been married for 6 months to her first husband before he passed away at 26 years old. And what year was that?
1973.
1973. Okay. So this is going to be a good conversation because she has walked through the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010s, and now the 2020s in what do we call these decades? Is it? Yes, thank you. Every 10 years is what? A decade? Thank you. Okay, see, I don't know all the words, but I'm asking her to make sure I'm talking correctly. She has been through almost 50 years of losses. And I really don't always get people with that much time and the culture of the time. So, this episode, I'm going to be asking her a little bit differently because we've had some time before we press play here today to kind of hash out some things in her life. And I just want y'all to know that I have observed that in a small town, that people feel a lot of liberty to tell us things about how we should or shouldn't live our life. Let me just start there. And that has rung true for me. It has been said that I think there's a statistic more so with a couple that has lost a child, but they said majority of the reason for divorce when a couple has lost a child is how the spouses grieve, and it's because they grieve differently, and they grieve apart, basically, like it brings them apart. So I have also found that grief is so individual that I would love to say that every family grieves collectively the same, but I have not found that to be true in any story that I have talked to. So there is tension and some friction sometimes in the grieving process. And I have had a couple of conversations with Sandra now, and something that she told me has just been stuck in my brain. And I'm going to be asking this of many widows beyond this point. And I really want to start with this today, that she is now at 78 years old, realizing within herself that she has never really slowed down enough to process not just one husband's death. That was sudden. But then her second husband and her third husband passed a week apart.
Correct.
And something about those so close together has started to unravel some of the heartstrings within Sandra. And I am encouraging her that this is a good thing, that this is a God thing, that even if it feels uncomfortable or why now, and what am I supposed to do with all these feelings, that this I'm hearing this, it's not always that age, but for whatever reason, now is the time. So that is very fascinating, just from an observation of if you were going to be doing statistics on widows, when do you grieve? When is the right time to grieve? She really did not have a chance. And maybe it was that she didn't know she could grieve. Can you just explain, just briefly, that first week of what happened when your first husband passed, just to kind of give some context to what it was like to grieve in the 70s?
Well, I was 26. He had just turned 30. He was killed in a hunting accident. And it seemed like at that point, my mom and dad just took over. They went out and bought a plot. They took me to the funeral home to pick out a casket. They set up the funeral itself. And I just sort of followed with them. And it was like I was in almost a daydream that I was just there in slow motion. And they probably, and I'm sure they did all the work.
Yep. So that's just, we're going to stop right here because for me at 36, when it happened, there was decisions I had to make within the hours. And I will say that is where a little bit I didn't know really, or I didn't understand anxiety. But I can now say that they call it PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. So sometimes when things suddenly start to happen, or multiple things happening quickly, I can feel this anxiety. I call it a little ticker, this little fan. Oh, the ticker's on. And I have to figure out how to get that back off. I'm thankful that that is not a chronic thing. But when additional stress or multiple things, like I said, happen, that is something, and I do truly believe that because my husband passed suddenly and there were responsibilities I had to suddenly take on quick, that there's a term we would call it now, that your nervous system, which is got dysregulated. And that is where panic and tears and all these things can start to find you because you can't stay level anymore. Basically, life has hijacked your body. And I didn't know that at the time. I didn't even really, like I say, know that anxiety, I'd heard of it, but I didn't exactly know. I hadn't experienced it myself. Now, in the 70s, since your parents kind of took this over, it doesn't sound like you really dealt with that.
I didn't. And I probably still haven't to this day.
And hey, that may be a gift, ma'am. That may be a gift. If the anxiety you don't want to have, okay? That's not something you want to catch. So your parents kind of came in. Now, you were working.
Yes.
And so you had a full-time job.
Yes.
And you had your own place.
Yes, but I lived right next door to them.
Okay.
So that made a difference.
And can you tell them a little bit about, like, you worked and you came home and how they took care of you?
Yes. I would get up in the morning and I would go to work. I'd get off at lunchtime. I went to my mama's house. Lunch was on the table. I went back to work. I got off work. I went back to her house and dinner was on the table. They would go out every afternoon after they ate and ride around. Well, here I go too. I'm right there with them. We go out to eat. If they wanted to go somewhere, it was also including me. And that's the way it was for a long, long time.
In some cases, this sounds nice. Okay, driving Miss Daisy. Hey, the idea of nothing, I didn't have to handle anything. You don't got to cook. No. You get taken care of. I mean, that sounds like a dream come true.
Well, it was for a while.
It was for a while.
And then it got difficult because I guess maybe I got a little bit more life myself, and I had things that I wanted to do, but
they wanted you to do what they wanted.
They wanted me to continue doing what I had always done.
And okay, so very interesting. And then you said you moved to Norfolk after that.
Yes.
And you met your second husband
Yes.
in Norfolk.
Yes.
And you were together for how many years?
Probably 10, 12 years.
And even though you thought everything was kind of going well there, at some point you're saying he kind of served you papers.
Yes. I went home one day and it was my birthday, a nice present, and there was divorce papers laying on the table, which stayed there for months, and nobody ever talked about it. They just laid there. And then one day he was going to Myrtle Beach for a shrine convention, and he told me that when he came back, I needed to be gone. Divorce papers and all.
And that was in the 80s.
Yes.
Right? Or 90s?
The 80s and 90s.
Was the relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, we're putting timelines in here because let's just say in the 90s, the culture for the time, the man took initiative. The man didn't have a discussion with you that this was coming, correct?
That's correct.
So she was, let's use the term, blindsided with divorce papers, where there was no conversation about counseling or why. Did he give a reason why he wanted to divorce you?
No, but I found out later on.
Okay, we don't have to get all into that. So it's kind of, this is it. I'm not going to have a discussion with you. I've made up my mind and I need you out. Thankfully, she had a job. You're going to see a pattern here with this conversation here today. Now, I want to kind of go back. Part of this discussion is that Sandra has a unique story that I don't feel I've really gotten to discover or uncover. We're uncovering some things here today, and she is being very kind to allow me to sift into the matters of her past and her heart. To bring some things to light that she never had children.
True.
But each spouse that she married had children.
Correct.
And you were kind of involved, not that involved with any of these children.
No, not really. Because Ed's kids were in their 40s and 50s.
Now the first husband,
she was 8.
And with her mother.
And she was with her mother, and her mother was one that did not like to share.
Right. So for whatever reason, it does seem that all 3 men that have been part of Sandra's story, the wives were not into sharing their children. So she really is a businesswoman her entire life. How many years of work did you work?
Well, when I graduated in 1965, I went right directly to work at Union Camp.
And when did you finally retire? Not from Union, but totality.
During COVID.
Okay, 2020. So how many years would that be? 40 some? What did you say? 68?
78.
Okay, 78 is when you started working?
65 is when I started.
Okay, so then let's try to calculate. That's 35 years, 35. That's 55 years of working. Okay, that's pretty typical. So she is a female that started working in 1965 and worked until 2020, y'all. I want you to hear this, that she is a prototype, if we want to say, of a working woman. That was new for that time, wasn't it? Didn't most of the mothers in 1965, they were stay-at-home mothers? How many working women did you know?
I don't really know.
I mean, I know you worked with women, but would you say, can you remember thinking there were many women that didn't become mothers that you worked with?
No.
And did any of them stay working, or did they have to go home after they had a child?
Home.
Right. So you were one of the few, I would say, that could keep your job, you're a reliable employee. Not that they knew whether you were going to get pregnant at any one point.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then at 1998, you were how old? We don't know. I'm really asking some stuff. So I think you were in your 40s. Were you in your 40s when you got divorced?
Probably 40s, 50s, late 40s, early 50s. Because when I married Ed, I think I was in my 50s, 56, something like that.
So then there was another span of singleness, and she said she met her third husband on a dating app.
Yeah. On Yahoo.
I don't even know. I remember some of that, but it's before my time. So that was in the early 2000s.
Yes, because this is another one. We met in August of 2001, and we married in November of 2001. We were quick at it.
Okay. That tidbit didn't get exposed earlier. All right, so in 3 months' time, 4 months, 3 months, and something tragic happened in between that time. Didn't his son pass?
It was his nephew.
Okay.
No, his grandson, excuse me. It was his grandson.
Okay, so in between August and November, he walked through a funeral where a grandson passed tragically.
Yeah.
And what did he say to you after that? Life is short.
Yes. Well, it is. Yes. No, I think we're getting confused here. That was Bill who lost his son. That was my second husband.
Oh, right. We're still in that.
Okay. We're still in the second.
I'm sorry. You're right. Okay, I'm getting things confused. So the second husband
lost his son.
But how long did you date before you married him?
We probably dated 6 or 7 years.
Oh.
And he had his own place and I had my own place. I'd stay sometimes with him, sometimes I'd stay at my place. But it was when his son got killed, he came to me and told me life is short, we need to get married.
Okay.
And so we got married, and then it wasn't long after that he wasn't
wanting to be married anymore. Okay, so all right, so that might have gotten a little confusing there, but I'm trying to track properly on who is with who. This is fun, y'all. This is fun because she's had a lot of adventures.
Yeah.
And so that happened with the second one. There was a tragedy. So there had been kind of a long relationship of togetherness. Let's say over 5 years is pretty long, in my opinion, for something to not turn into marriage. And then that finally did, but it does seem that maybe he had some commitment issues, to be honest, because you said he was married 3 or 4 different times.
Well, he was married 3 times after we divorced.
Right, and you were the second.
No, I was the third.
Okay, so he'd been married 6 times, y'all. All right. Okay, so there's something to be said there, and but then you always stayed friends.
Oh yes.
And that's kind of her, isn't it? Everyone, that she would stay friends with a man who had been married 6 times. And then in the 2000s, you
met my
last husband, which was Ed.
Yeah. Yes.
And you were married
24 years.
24 years. And it was last fall, right?
No, April of last year.
Okay, so you're coming up on the 1 year.
Yes.
Very interesting the amount of times I get widows right around the 1 year mark. I've had so many synchronicities of when I contact them ends up being around that. Okay. And so it was 1 year ago, you basically lost the last 2 loves of your life back to back.
A week apart, yes.
And that seemed to have finally hit you differently.
Yes.
Now, what would you like to share with the listeners about loving that many times and losing that many times? I mean, it takes a pretty brave heart to get back on the love train, I believe, even though you didn't really know when they would pass. But you still felt deeply for them both.
Well, I felt deeply for all of them.
Yes.
I mean, Tommy and I had only been married for 6 months. But I think the thing with Tommy was I didn't really grieve because I didn't go through the experience of it all, because my mom and dad and everybody was there,
Yep.
and they did the heavy lifting.
Yes.
And so I just kept on with my life.
Yep.
And then when I met Bill, I was in for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't.
Mm.
And as I told you before, and I'll tell this silly story now, is when we separated and were getting a divorce, I would invite him over to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then after he left my house from dinner, he would go to his girlfriend's house.
Mm.
And this continued until he remarried.
Mm.
So
that's a very nice lady, in my opinion. So, but it is funny because it's interesting that she still loved him, and she was hoping that, it says a way to a man's heart is through his stomach. So maybe she took that literally and thought that if she cooked him food and showed that she could still take care of him, that he would choose her. Later down the road, we found out he did not choose her, and or that next person for very long, because he married 3 more times after that. So very interesting. But with your last husband, what he had been sick for a little bit.
Yes.
Can you share about that?
Well, he had a lot of ailments as well. He had to have his knee replaced, and that didn't go well. So he refereed softball, football, and so he wasn't able to do the things that he wanted to do. And it just seemed like he went downhill from there. He was falling a lot, and I was having to have people come over to get him up. And I've taken video of him when he was in so much pain that he would ask God to take him because he was in so much pain and he didn't want to be. He couldn't do the things he wanted to do. And so he knew, and I hate to say this, but he knew I was going to be all right because I always am.
Right.
You always just forge through and you're going to be all right. And he knew that. And he was tired of living. And he would tell me he was ready to go.
Yeah. And finally that day came. But was that the first time really you had walked with someone through an illness?
Oh, yes. Well, I had been with my mother when she was sick, but this was different because of the fact that he was in East Pavilion and he got sick. They took him to the emergency room. They couldn't find out what was wrong with him, so they said. So they took him to Richmond, Petersburg, I believe it is. They took him to Petersburg, and the next day, Judy's son, Jason, took me to Petersburg. And when I walked in the hospital, they told me, well, we're so glad you're here. We're getting ready to take your husband off of his medicine, and he's going to die today. And you look at these people like they're crazy. What do you mean he's going to die today? Oh, we're just keeping him alive, medically keeping him alive. Well, the first thing that goes through my mind is he's got 2 boys. Don't take him off this medicine until we can actually have the boys come.
Right.
So they did that. The boys came. And I know Ed knew what was going on. You could tell he would talk. I was sitting next to him and he was talking to me. He knew, he could understand everything that was going on. But what got to me is he died of sepsis. And something else. I can't even remember what it is right now. But anyhow, he died of sepsis. And they told, to have somebody tell you, yes, your husband's sick and he's going to die today, is something that I'll never forget.
Absolutely.
It's just, and you're sitting there looking at him and he looks fine. You're going to tell me he's going to go? Yes, he's going to go. Well, his boys came up and he did pass. It was about 10 o'clock that night. But Yes, that was I think the worst. I mean, I told him, we talked. I told him, if you're ready to go, then you need to go.
Yes. It's very real.
Oh, yeah.
It feels very final. It feels very final. But you were you were confident that he was going to go see Jesus.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah.
So there is a different, even though there's still sadness, there's a difference when you're a believer because it's not the end.
Oh, yes, and especially if they're ready to go.
Right.
I think that's probably one of the reasons that I didn't grieve that much about it is because I knew he was ready. I knew where he was going.
And you were going to see him again.
And I was going to see him again. And this is what he wanted.
Yes. And I've heard the term that there's a peace in the passing when it kind of seems like it's on your terms. That doesn't seem to be everyone's plight, especially if you're dealing with dementia and things like that. They're not always fully aware, even if they can't fully function at that point. There's many that their mind is still very with it.
Yeah, well,
but their body was playing out.
He had dementia, early stages, so they said. Sometimes he would talk in crazy ways, but then again, there were times when he was completely normal.
And so now you are coming up on the 1 year, and can you share with the listeners just what are just some of the funkiness of walking through grief in that first year?
Well, for me, he was at East Pavilion. I live 2 miles away at Edge Hill. So every day when I go to town, my car feels like it needs to turn into East Pavilion.
Even now?
Even now.
Wow.
Yes, you feel like that. And I did go up there at Christmas time, but it was so different because I walked around to his room and there was somebody in there that wasn't him. And so, yeah, you feel like you need to go. And it's sometimes it's okay, then sometimes it's not.
And so we had a little bit of discussion. So since he's not at East Pavilion, your car will go to the grave.
Yes, I do go to the cemetery once or twice a month, maybe sometimes more, maybe sometimes less. It all depends on if there's, since I have nobody, I have no kids like most people. I don't have anybody to talk to, so I'll go to the cemetery. My Ed's there. My mom's right next to him. My great nephew is there. My dad, my grandmother, my first husband, they're all there. So I just go visit them all and I talk to him and tell him what's on my mind.
And you said sometimes you feel better and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, sometimes I feel better and then sometimes I don't.
And I think that is so true. She asked me, do I go to visit the grave? And I said, not really. I don't think he's there, so for whatever reason, I can talk to him here just as much as I can talk to him there. But I know that there is something about going to a place that what do you think it is?
Well, his ashes are there.
At the cemetery?
Yes, see, I have a plot and I'm not gonna be cremated. And I didn't know at the time that you can bury 2 people in one plot.
Yes.
So we buried my great nephew with my mother. And so I held on to Ed's ashes for a while and then I thought, well, a lot of people say, well, I don't have anywhere to visit. I don't need, I need to go. So I talked to Barkey and we decided that we would put him at the foot of my plot. And then when I die, he will either be put in the casket with me or either they'll just leave him where he's at.
And so I appreciate you sharing that, because these are things we don't know. Okay, if you're not in the funeral business, we can't assume that we should just know everything about everything. We cannot. Our brain cannot take everything in. And in this social media world and news ridden world, we're taking in more information faster than ever, and our brain is getting a little discombobulated. Adults are being diagnosed with ADHD, ADD like never before, and I think it's really because we're having to take in so much information. Back in the day, you had a man on a horse telling you some things. You would wait for the paper, or you had that show once a week where the news, it wasn't every day. Now it's every minute, every second. If you want to know something, it's there for you to find.
Yeah.
And so now that you are 78 years old and you have worked for most of your life, what do you really feel like is next?
I don't know, but I'll tell you a little secret. I went to the cemetery when I told Ed about his son having cancer. And I looked at that grave and I just told it, I'm not ready yet. It's not my time. I'll be back later, but not right now.
I love what I'm hearing. I love what I'm hearing. You know why? Because you're choosing life. This woman here is choosing life. And this is what I call the life after death story. And maybe the pages are blank right now. Are you turning the page?
I don't know. I know I have 3 family members left. I have a great niece, 2 great nieces, and 1 nephew. And I'm just not ready to give up yet. I'm ready to, maybe they need me, maybe they don't. I don't know. But I'm not quite ready to just let go. I mean, I don't ever expect to probably find somebody and get married again.
Hey, her heart is still open to it. She's a romantic at heart. She has to be. If even at 78, she's willing to say that.
I know I get up every day and I have to do something. If it's just, my mother used to do this, just get up and go to Walmart and talk to somebody in Walmart. I have got to do something. I'll get up, go to town, go to Walmart, go to the dump and take the trash.
This is good. These are practical tips.
These are things that I have to do, and then I come home and I'll stay for a while. And if I decide I want to go somewhere, I'll get in the car and go somewhere. If I don't, I'll stay at home. But I'm just not one. I had somebody tell me one time, well, you just need to stay at home. You don't need to be running up and down the road. You're 78, something's going to happen. And I said, well, as long as I got a driver's license and a car that'll run, I'm gone.
That's good. That's good, because once you're homebound,
that's it.
That doesn't seem to be a great prognosis. And there's many in this community that the sheriff's department is calling to make sure that they're alive. There's a program, I can't remember the name of it, but when they know they don't have family around and there's elderly sitting in a house, they call every day to make sure they're alive. You have to get on the list. But this is the human experience, y'all. This is why I love having these conversations. Now, something she mentioned earlier, not in the video, but with me, is that her second husband really helped you learn. He taught you a bunch of things about practical things. And can you share a little bit about that? Do you think it helped give you more confidence, more independent confidence? Do you feel like that was all preparation?
Yes, really, because I was one of these little meat people that I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't get in anybody's business. I just went on my own. And if I went to have the car fixed and the man said, this is what it cost, okay, but Bill taught me to be more independent. He taught me how to stand up for myself, how to, I had never even thought about old age and saving money. He taught me how to save. He taught me a lot of things that I probably would have never learned from anybody else.
Wow.
And I mean, I don't know. I just never was, well, my mom and dad never taught me any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just never learned how to stand up for myself. And now probably I stand up for myself more than I should.
No, we won't say that here, because you have to advocate for yourself now more than ever, and so your voice does need to get a little bit louder now because you don't have that backer. So what may feel different is really you stepping into, what they would call your authentic voice or something like that, because you have to, or you'll get stepped on.
Oh yes, nowadays you will.
And so I thought that was a beautiful sentiment, that I think there's something that we think that, like, every decade that you learn these skills in your 20s, and you learn these skills in your 30s, and then in your 40s you grow into this. But maybe some of that didn't get flushed out, because sometimes I would say that if you start having children, you got to have these conversations about finances and just different things, who's going to do the gender roles on things, where you kind of, because you didn't have that part of your story, you just, maybe there was a little more ease in these transitions. Now, what was your position? What was the jobs that you actually did? Accounting the whole time?
Well, when I was at camps, I was in payroll.
Okay.
And when I moved to Norfolk, I was in payroll. But the company was sold, so I was payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, secretary, anything that they wanted you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to my last job in Norfolk, I was accounts payable, and I was accounts payable for 28 years there.
So she's been, yes, in the bookkeeping business her entire life, which is a numbers person. So it's interesting when she says, if I will say that when you think about numbers people, that they would apply that to their personal life, or really be into stocks or your 401k, or these retirement things, or a CD or an IRA, but those were not terms that you knew.
No.
So even though you did bookkeeping, you weren't really in conversations with people about finances.
No, not until I married Bill.
Wow. Okay.
And he opened my eyes to it. And I probably would not have what I have today, even though I don't have a lot. I probably would not have what I have today if it hadn't been for him.
And so this is the Lord looking out, okay? Regardless of how things panned out between her storylines, there was growth and parts of your story that developed further due to these men in your life.
Yeah.
So we're going to appreciate all of it, and the good, the bad, and the not so good, if you want to say. No one looks at divorce as a positive thing, but I'm thankful that in your story here that you learned a lot of good things.
Well, I believe, and I've told many of people this, I believe that the life I had was the life I was supposed to have. And if I went back and started all over again, I probably would do the very same things that I did.
Hey.
And some things naturally I regret, but for the whole part of it,
it's been a good life.
It's been a good life.
It's been a good life.
And I've met a lot of people, and like you hear, when one door closes, another door is going to open. And it does.
That just may need to be the title of this episode, that you stayed open.
Yeah, and I don't know why.
Well, she has a very strong heart, I would say. You're brave. And like I said, you must be a hopeless romantic of sort for you to stay open to love and loss.
Well, when I love deep and hard.
Okay. Good to know. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the kind everybody wants, to be honest.
It always doesn't work out. But at that particular time,
it was good.
It was good.
Well, I love that. Now, okay, so we're coming up on the anniversaries of all of this. And she told me, since we had a conversation last month, that she's feeling, would you say lighter, more clarity? What's the word that you can share with talking with someone about whatever, like just talking with somebody about your grief? What do you feel like is happening here? The Lord's opening up your heart now in a way that it was kind of dormant for a season. I know for me, I was numb for a while.
Yes, well, yes. And even before Ed got sick and passed away, I'd never shared a lot of my life with anybody. My mother was my go-to person until she got dementia, and she wasn't my go-to person. And I don't really have a go-to person now. Mm-hmm. So by talking to you, I don't know what it was that we talked that night. I think we talked about 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I just felt lighter.
Awesome.
I felt like, if I can talk to you, why can't I talk to somebody else?
You absolutely can. You absolutely can.
I may cry the whole time I'm talking to you.
Doesn't hurt, but I'm okay.
But it just, I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm still here, is to get this off of my chest.
Absolutely.
And then we'll go from there.
Well, I hope, is there anything else you want to share with the audience that is coming to your mind? We've been 47 minutes here.
I don't think so. I probably will think of 1,000 things
after you get off
and look at my notes.
That's it.
But.
Well, I hope that you have enjoyed just getting into another life of Sandra right here, who has been in the Hampton Roads area your entire life. And I just have to say, y'all, that this is part of the work, if you want to call it, here at the Widow Walk. I am curious about people, specifically widows and widowers, and the process of their grief, how they're grieving, how they're thinking through grief, how they physically feel through the grief. I am asking these kind of questions because I believe that we don't know how to grieve with grace and a smile on our face. I think that grief intimidates a lot of us. I think that the culture wants you to move past it faster. Get over it. That's the word I want to say. Why aren't they over it yet? It's very interesting mental process to think she deeply loved, and then you want her to just get on with it. Okay? I don't think that's right. I don't think that is it is not a compassionate way of pressing people to move forward faster than they feel like they can. Because as you've heard here, she had multiple losses throughout her life, and choosing to do it that way of just continuing to move forward, she's now having to kind of face all of these losses at once, okay? That is a little more intense, to be honest. But she didn't know that because it never really crossed her mind. And so what I'm encouraging her, that now is the time. Now is the time to really go inward and let this mirror that you're kind of facing some things about the past that you're now dealing with in the present. Why is this important work? Why is this sacred, holy work? Because you have a future. And I challenge every widow that your future is to be bright, is to have purpose, and to continue to knock on heaven's door, not to get on in. Okay, she went to that grave and said, I'm not coming yet. But because the Father's voice, he has a word for you, he has a direction, a path for you. And I cannot tell her that. I can encourage her throughout her path, and we can have conversations along the way. But I had to journal for myself to hear the voice of the Lord for myself. I could not rely on my dad to pray for me and hear through him, because the Lord did not give him all of it. He may have given him a piece of something, but I had to learn how to hear for myself and to trust that there was going to be a learning curve to that. There was going to be mistakes along the way, that I needed to give myself permission to make a mistake as an adult person. And we think mistakes carry consequences. Some could be pretty heavy, some not so heavy. And I'm encouraging you that we are trying to build a network here at the Widow Walk of widows trusting widows. And there are many widows sitting in their home, as I said in our group, having a little bit of a pity party about their isolation, the loneliness of this widow's walk. And my hunch is that maybe 3 doors down, there's a widow thinking the same thing. But nobody wants to be a burden, and no one wants to dump their sadness on another person. And so we just sit in our own sadness, and that can make you sick, y'all. It makes you sick. And just getting in community helps flush some of this out along the way, instead of 6 months of sitting in your mind and allowing all this swirly stuff to happen. And now your heart's distressed and the swirly stuff's happening and you're trying to figure out what to do. And you should be further along than this. And how can you be 78 years old and not know how to do this? And all these, do you hear the swirly? I'm trying to give some human examples of how we're better together. And every one of us is doing this a little bit differently. But just calling someone on the phone and allowing them to process their feelings. And I hope that you felt after that conversation that you weren't judged in the phone call, that I could handle what you were saying, that I wasn't going to walk away from that phone call thinking any kind of way about any of it. Because what I told her in person is, I just want the widow to get it out. It's sitting inside your body and it's not doing you good. All these thoughts, these feelings, the past, it needs to get flushed out. And we are here at the Widow Walk trying to help. We're trying to figure this out, how to create a process, if you want to call it, that is unique to the message that the Widow Walk has for you. And we have some different resources, and we are growing those resources as we go. Judy mentioned how we're working on a book last week, 12 chapters about that first year of different areas that we ran into and we believe is pretty common across the board. And we are bringing those things to the forefront so that you can read it, not to compare, but to realize, oh, this is normal what I'm going through. And hey, I'm going to give myself some permission to feel angry. I'm going to give myself permission to understand, hey, I thought my family was going to come and save the day like she got, where there's other widows who no one came. Nobody came. So here there's such a spectrum on the aftermath after a loss. Some, you never hear from that spouse's family again. and you loved that family up to that point, and you thought they were going to be there for you. And what you find out is that they were there for the spouse, the family member. You were kind of a tag along. You don't find that out till after the fact when they never call you.
It's true.
And this has happened with many widows that I have talked to. That compounds the grief, y'all, because you realize you're not just losing that spouse that he was saying he was ready to go here. So she accepted that, but then to accept that you lose everything else can be very hard. And so you're not just grieving one thing. And I've heard others say that the version of them with their spouse they liked better. And the version of them now, they don't know who she is. They don't even know how to figure her out. That is so real, y'all. And there's an identity crisis almost, like formerly known as. Who are you now? Yeah. Who are you now? And what I'm here to encourage all of the listeners is, I haven't said these things to you before, but when I started reading the Bible after my husband passed, something was highlighted to me. There's no last names in any of the books. From Genesis to Revelation, it's a first name basis.
Well, you don't know how to identify yourself. Mrs., Miss,
and everything else.
And anything else that there is to go along with
There's a challenge in the world right now on this very thing. And so that really let me know our last name doesn't hold as much weight in eternity. That we are a son and a daughter of the King. That's who I'm identifying as. All the other things is the icing on the cake, if you want to call it. Our first identity, if you have asked Jesus into your heart, is a daughter of the King. And that changed how I started walking and how I started talking, because I was like, I'm not a little peasant girl. I'm a farmer's daughter by trade. Well, a farmer, I would say, seems a little more agriculture, kind of a peasant girl. That's the lower level folks, okay? I'm not in parliament. I'm not in whatever you want to call what you would think is the upper class. I wasn't in upper class. And that can kind of do something to you a little bit. And then the only way to get to another class is to work.
Yeah.
And when you work, then you can sometimes work yourself into a different pay grade, a different tax bracket. You can go back to school. You can get some abbreviations behind your name.
Oh, yeah.
And those different abbreviations give you different pay. They have earned the pay because they put in the work. Well, when your last name changes, it's a little different. Yeah. It's not about pay exactly. She's worked her whole life and served all these different men. What do you have to show for it? Life. She's lived a full life.
Yes. And I intend on living
a longer full life.
A longer full life.
So why am I I'm just getting into the nuts and bolts of the physiological part of grieving, the emotional part of grieving, the reconciling the past, where you're kind of being a little bit haunted and tormented in the present. And these emotions that you never really had to face because they didn't find you really in the past, because you were working, you were doing other things, and now you have no one else to take care of, and you have to learn how to take care of yourself. And then you're like, how am I in my 70s, almost 80s, and I don't know how to take care of myself? But you kind of do know how to take care of yourself.
Oh, yes.
That's a benefit of her independence and being a working woman, that she has an advantage. A lot of women who were stay-at-home moms and their husbands did everything are really shook up.
Yes. See, well, I've always taken care of myself. I went to work. The day I graduated, the next day I went to work. And I've just worked ever since. And I've done everything for myself.
Yeah.
Not saying that Ed and Bill didn't do for me,
Yeah.
but there were a lot of things that I did probably that most women wouldn't have done in my time.
In that time.
In that time
in the
frame
era of
yeah.
marriage in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s. You were a little progressive is what I'm saying. You were before your time.
Yes, probably.
And so there were some benefits, obviously. And like she said, she's a little more financially stable today due to some learned things along the way, and also putting in the time and the work to build her Social Security. Whatever people think about that, it is there.
Yeah.
And it is coming to take care of you now. That is still a benefit here in the US of A in 2026. So this is it, y'all. If there are others, I'm going to continue to uncover these storylines, because hopefully not only when they share their story, there's more healing as they're processing it out loud. There's something about when we think things and when we say things, it connects differently. Sometimes light bulbs go on. You could have been thinking it, but until you say it, there's something not fully real.
That's true.
When you have to say, my husband passed, it is a different physiological thing than just thinking my husband passed. And I told her over the phone that when she's saying, I'm going by East Pavilion, and I said, I've read this, that there's something in the brain that at least for 3 years or longer, it's looking for them to return. It hasn't fully reconciled within our mind and our body and our spirit. And so she's still walking through that, where there's this eeriness of like, I need to go visit. And then it feels wrong because our body is yearning to go there and visit. And then you have to remember, oh, he's not there anymore. And so every time she's having to face that reality and the grief a little bit again, those bittersweet moments. He's in heaven. That's sweet. But the bitterness of knowing he's not here with me now, that can happen for however long, y'all. And we cannot put a timeline on this. But if it is happening and you're tired of it happening, if you know what I mean, please get in touch with us. We are growing in our resources to help you process these things out. I am not a licensed counselor. I don't even know if I can call myself a life coach because I don't have that designation either. I really believe we at the Widow Walk are a resource. So it's kind of like, hey, information comes in. We hope that we have some connections to other people with the different needs, whether that's needing something done at your house, needing something done within your heart, needing community, and then we're going to match you to those different areas, and then hopefully you can start furthering your healing process to get to that new start, because we believe you have a new finish. That is what we're growing here at the Widow Walk. We are inching along in what that process looks like as we build a team and outside resources to refer you to. So thank you, Sandra, for coming along.
Thank you for all you've done.
For releasing your story here today, for continuing to process your grief right here on Southampton Road. And we're going to continue to do this together. That's what we're doing. We're having conversations to normalize grief, to normalize the am I crazy type of thinking, and to also hopefully help you not sit in your pain by yourself. That really, to me, is the part that Judy Hawkins Dunn and I desire the most, is that no one sits alone for too long in their pain. You don't need to. We are here to help grieve with you and to help you not fast forward your grief. Let me please say that again. But some of you have been sitting in it so long, you're ready to move on, and you do not know how. And it isn't a one size fits all. That's what's so complex. facts about this process. But I truly believe that when you're sitting in a room with a widow that's 5 years in, and a widow that's 15 years in, and a widow that's 8 months in, there is just something that happens in the room where they can share what has helped them. And then something about the community of that lightens the moment for you, and just her getting up and getting out is really the first steps.
Oh, yeah.
It's choosing to live again today. Every day you're having to say, I'm worth getting up, getting out. And for some of you, you're more extroverted like myself and you like people. Some of you like to be kind of in your own space and maybe people come to you. All are good, y'all. All are good. So if you have some books or some great tips that have helped you along the way, please let us know. We want to continue to add those to our website so we become kind of a one-stop shop. Whatever you're looking for, we're going to build more resources as we are exposed to them ourselves, and as widows get breakthrough and are able to kind of break through that funkiness of who I was, who I am, and where I'm trying to get to, I don't fully know. We're growing and having resources and tools and books and music and directories of assistance to refer you to other people. All of that is on our website. If you did not know that, please head over to thewidowwalk.org. We have 3 tabs. The grief education, where other widows and widowers have shared their widow walk stories in written form. Some other links of things that are available in this community resource guides. Grief expression, that is where you can find Mondays with Micah. All of our videos are there. Our books that have been written are there. The songs that have been written are there. And then if you head to Grief Empowerment, that is our stories where widows and widowers have remarried. We have love stories on there. We have other widows and widowers that have shared their warrior stories on there. And we have our directory of assistance on there. Businesses locally, plumbers, septic system, termite, roof, electrical, flooring. I have a list of local people, handymen who can do shrub work, yard work, all on there for you. So then who do you call? Check it out on our website so that you don't get so overwhelmed when needs happen. You can check it out and make those phone calls. These are all businesses that I have used personally myself. They did not take advantage of me. These are good people, and I will vouch for them. And I believe that they will take care of you as well. Until next time, what are we going to say, Sandra? Bye-bye.